A lot of good talk and a lot of big expectations surrounding Oklahoma State football this offseason, as opposed to last year when the Cowboys showed us that they had some bounce back in them there in October and November en route to a Big 12 championship game. Got Cody Stovall on the line from Lockdown Oklahoma State. Please join him there. You will see the specifics on the screen here in just a second. Cody, what's going on today?
Mark, greatly appreciate you having me. And this season is probably the most anticipatory season of all time for Oklahoma State fans.
That's quite a statement.
It is. I mean, you got to think, if you look back like 1944, Bob Finnemore and the Galloping Ghost had everybody excited for 45. 1984 is the best defense in Oklahoma State history, right next to 2021. We had the Thurman Thomas, Mike Gundy, Hartley Dykes, Barry Sanders years of 85 or 86, 87, 88. And that was obviously very anticipatory. And then we kind of went on a drought for quite some time. And 2010 showed us that 2011 should be pretty successful, right? So that was very anticipated. 2021 was supposed to show us what 2022 could have been, but that didn't work out. This sets up to have the best season of all time. Mark, we've never had, that I'm aware of, 21 returning starters and 90+% of the roster returning.
Best running back in college football statistically is Ollie Gordon. It's a bit amazing to go back and see that aside from the Heisman Trophy, he picked up about every imaginable award known to man, 1,700 yards, 20+ touchdowns. But, however, some off-the-field issues. And what is the latest on Ollie Gordon in regards to what you know and anticipate as affecting this Oklahoma State season?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you could say statistically he's the best back in the country returning. And, of course, he's got to prove it again on the field just as much as he's got to learn to order Uber better off the field. There is precedence for this, fortunately. Right? Mike Gundy is a very strict disciplinarian. But at the same time, if you go back and you look at somebody's history and the track record of whether they've been a troublemaker or they've gotten bad grades or they've had some difficulties getting to practices and classes on time, then there would be a lot of evidentiary proof as to why you should get rid of this individual. But if you revert back to, say, somebody like a Justin Blackman, he did get a DUI at one point in time at Oklahoma State, but because of his family, his upbringing, his background, Mike Gundy gave him another opportunity. He was suspended the first game of the season, and then he ran like 733,000 stadium stairs. I think that the Ollie Gordon situation is going to be pretty comparable to that. So is he likely out for SDSU? 100%. Is he going to be out for Arkansas and Tulsa? That remains to be seen. But as it sits right now, it does appear as though we're going to be missing him for game one. He's decided from here to the draft, though, he's going to stay. His little took us on campus, which is going to be good for everybody involved, including Mike Gundy. So now for the game one against South Dakota State University, we're going to have to rely on the Indiana transfer, Trent Howland, who just rushed for almost 400 yards. He led Indiana in rushing. He averaged 4.7 yards a carry, so he should be able to step in and fill that void pretty nicely, especially when you take into consideration that we have 6 returning sixth-year seniors on the offensive line.
Yeah, this offensive line in particular, as we segue into a bit of a fall camp preview, I'm looking at the Phil Steele rankings right here. We'll start with the offensive line. 4th rated offensive line, according to Phil Steele. The number of starts is insane. You pair that with an Ollie Gordon, and this running back rushing game should be devastating. And then the rest of the complementary pieces aren't bad at all either. The wide receiver core, he's got ranked at 46. I don't really get that. Rashad Owens, Brennan Presley, those guys caught like 165 passes last year. They're really good. The running back room at 3, the wide receiver or the quarterback room, not even ranked here. So anyway, when you put it all together, let's break down this offense. So getting back to the run game, you mentioned Howland. Is there anybody else that could be in the mix, especially if Gordon's on the shelf for a few weeks?
Yeah, so last season we got to see Sesi Vealahe as a true freshman in the Big 12 title game against Texas. From a physiological standpoint, clearly he needed to hit the weight room a little bit more. But what you did see from the Big 12 title game out of Sesi is the ability to literally shoot out of a cannon. He comes from the same coach as Jalen Warren. He went through the same system as Jalen Warren and was recruited very similar to Jalen Warren. Therefore, he's a pretty comparable back to that. he's going to be more of the lightning package. It was supposed to be A.J. Green after transferring from Arkansas, bringing in his 953 yards, but he had a season-ending injury, or at least he's going to be out for a few months, which means we're going to have to rely a little bit more on Trent Allen, the Indiana running back, Sesi Bealahe, the freshman out of Utah. And then behind him, we've got a couple more freshmen, Rodney Fields, who was a 4-star get out of Booker T. Washington. And you've got Jaden Allen Hendricks, 6'2", 230-pound running back out of South Carolina. So it's very youth-oriented, but I think from a talent perspective, we should be okay. And then we also have the X factor, I would say, in Kyler Pearson, transferring from Kansas. He's an Okie from the Tulsa area, 5'8", 170 pounds, but he had to kind of spell some spots at running back during the spring, and it wasn't just a warm body. He was legitimately jackknifing through the line and making some stuff happen. So I do think that we're going to see some packages with Kyler Pearson, even with Ollie Gordon at his full time frame.
And so then we've got this wide receiver core that I touched upon, the two leading guys that are veterans. Is there depth there? Can they go 3, 4, 5 at that position?
From a talent perspective, I think so. But from a numerical perspective, this is probably one of our lowest numbers that we have as far as position groups go. You already mentioned Rashad Owens coming back with over 850 yards receiving. You've got Brendan Presley, who comes back with 989 yards receiving as well. And nobody's really talking about the best wide receiver at Oklahoma State last season pre-injury was Dejon Stribling. He is fully healthy back, and I'm anticipating 1,000-yard season for him. And then you also have the big get in Talon Shetron, the 4-star that decommitted from OU to come to Oklahoma State. He's still a viable option. You got Daylon Lofton, the 5'10", 185-pound transfer from Virginia Tech. So depth may be a little problematic, but the talent is not going to be.
Okay, then we've got Alan Bowman, a quarterback, of course, and he is the veteran of veterans. But 15 touchdowns and 14 picks, that doesn't tell the whole story, of course. But it's not a great indicator of him throwing the football away at times versus what the scoring passes would total. So your thoughts about Alan Bowman's play, and if that truly is indicative, the TD to pick ratio of where he was last year and what he needs to do to get better.
Obviously, Alan Bowman needed to make a decent amount of improvements. And I think a lot of us assume that 7 years into college football is going to be pretty difficult for him to make those improvements, right? He had a big propensity last season to bail 17 yards out of the pocket and throw it up in the stands. He will always be the all-time leader in Oklahoma State yardage to the student section for sure. But he had to make some adjustments within the pocket. He actually was able to do that. Now, is that just the disillusionment of what spring can provide, or is that legitimately him getting better within the pocket? We're going to find out as the season goes on. But as you mentioned, the interception to touchdown ratio is a major obstacle that he needs to overcome. He is 9th all time in single season passing yards, so that's beneficial. We know that he can get yards in bunches, and with this offensive line, he should have significantly more time. Therefore, he shouldn't need to bail out 17 yards and pull his crawdaddy backwards business.
Cody, on one hand, I am just racking my brain to come up with a team. They don't exist this year in offense, and I can't imagine that they exist too many times throughout the history of college football. 7th-year starting quarterback. Obviously, he's not started all 7 years, but he's a 7th-year quarterback that has started at Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. The arguably best running back in the country, who is running behind an experienced offensive line that's being ranked in the top 3 to 5 in the country, 2 wide receivers that are proven playmakers, guys that are dependable. Like, there's nothing on the offense that is not proven. So if you want to be super pessimistic about it, you say, well, they've got a low ceiling because we've already seen all this before. But basically, they could spend an entire off season and there's no, we got to work out in this new 3 out of 5 offensive linemen, or we've got this piece or this piece to work in. It's truly just, let's continue to work together, figure out what went wrong at times last year, and just improve.
The improvement has to be indicative, I think, of the schedule, right? At this time last season, I told you we would win 10 games because of the schedule. This season, I'm saying we're going to win 10 games, but it's not because of the schedule. It's because of the talent. The schedule this season doesn't really work out in our favor, right? We start the season with SDSU, who is, yes, a lower tier club, but they've won 29 games in a row, back-to-back FCS national titles. They are going to be prepared. Then you have Arkansas. Are they as talented, as deep as Oklahoma State? Probably not, but they will be as big up front, right? So the battle in the trenches is going to be worth its weight in gold. Then you got Tulsa, then you got Utah, then you got Kansas State, then you have West Virginia. To me, if you get by that first half of the season, 6-1, 7-0-ish, obviously you're in a very good position to capitalize on the season moving forward. I think that the difference between this year's offense and last year's offense will be the passing game. Right, last year everybody was keying on Ollie Gordon, trying to stop Ollie Gordon. That's not going to change at all this season. The difference, I think, is going to be the passing yards. If you're going to load the box against Oklahoma State, we're going to be fine with that because we know Alan Bowman should have the time to throw the ball deep, and we have the receivers to be able to bring it down and create some havoc in the back end of defenses.
Please like and subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. You see there on the bottom ticker. Please also check out the Big 12 channel and please subscribe. And, of course, get on over to Cody's Lockdown Oklahoma State. Best way to find you, best times to check out your deal every week.
Yeah, you just go check out the Lockdown Oklahoma State show. I do a little bit on social media stuff at All Day O State on X. It's O State All Day on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not on those a bunch, but I'm trying to be a little bit more involved in that department. Other than that, you can catch me pretty much every day, 5 to 6 days a week, Locked On Oklahoma State, as well as every other Saturday on the Saturday Night Snap Count.
Nice. Now, looking at the defense, struggled at times last year, has a linebacking core that is highly regarded in national rankings as being a top 5 linebacking unit in the country. But you got to keep those guys free and ready to roam to track down ball carriers. So the defensive line has to do its job. So when you put it all together, take us through the defense in regards to what you like and what you're concerned about.
The linebackers almost speak for themselves, so I'm going to kind of take the jump up to the defensive line. Last season, the defensive line was operating on purely the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. AKA, all they had to do was dominate an AO, an area of operation, and free things up for the guys behind them. The D-line wasn't asked to statistically chip in a whole bunch last season. This season's going to be a little bit different. There are going to be more 4-down looks. There's going to be more stunting, more twisting, more shifting at the pre-snap. There's going to be shifting in the back end of the defense. We have a 6'4", 242-pound safety who runs a 4.5 40 that will be blitzing a decent amount. And then we have a couple defensive linemen that will fulfill that Von Miller style role in Colin Oliver and Obi Ezegbo. The Obi Ezegbo coming over from Gannon College, a little bit undersized, 6'2", turned 45 pounds. He does run a 4.6 40, and he is very, very, very adequate at getting out in the flats, running up the seams, and protecting the backside drag of the tight end. This defense, I think, is the most exciting portion of the season, right? We know offensively what we should be able to provide. Defensively, we were like 141st in the nation last year in passing yards. That has to change. But I think it's going to change simply due to the ability in the defensive line to do significantly more than last season. And then if you shift to the linebackers, everyone's going to be talking about Nick Martin bringing back his 140 tackles, leading the Big 12, and one of the tops in the country. But I think the best point is the guy next to him, right? Last season, Xavier Benson was the dude that was designed to take on the lead blockers to free up Nick Martin, yeah? This season, that's going to be Justin Wright, the Dan Campbell quintessential chew-your-kneecap style guy who comes over from Tulsa after having 220 tackles in 2 seasons. That dude is a bigger, stronger, faster version of Xavier Benson. So we take what we had last year. We seem to have revamped it, right? Added some muscle, some mass to that position. And in the back end, Mark, that's the most exciting. Last year, the back end of our defense was putrid at times. But I will say, Brian Nardo found a way to get turnovers in fourth quarters to win ball games. The first 3 quarters, yeah, okay, you could throw it all over the yard and have a good time. He found ways to make adjustments in the fourth quarter to win ball games. If he's able to take those fourth quarter adjustments and sprinkle them throughout the entirety of the season with this defense, everybody's returning, Mark. Every single safety is back. Every single corner is basically back. This is a wild time to be a Cowboy fan. And like I said, this is the most anticipatory season because of this. This defense with this 3-3-5 is going to look different than any other 3-3-5 in the country.